notes today. For W2, standard is I can use the regression capabilities of technology to create an equation that models data. I can use the equation to predict future values. And then for the 4, I can describe in words what the equation represents in context of the data and identify its domain and range. Okay, so if you have a bunch of data to work with, technology must come into play. There are lots of different programs, software that will deal with data and compute stuff and give you graphs. The tool that you're expected to use in Algebra 2 and what they would expect you to be able to use in college is a graphing calculator. Now, the programs that do the software programs that do all this for you, like where you input data and just like plugs and chugs stuff and gives you graphs, uses the same kind of regression capabilities. So this is like the down dirty way of doing it, where you have to actually input the data and figure it out. But there is stuff later on, if you're working for a company or dealing with a bunch of data that you have to do this with, there's software that does it for you. But this is how it works. So if you have a bunch of data, technology must come into play. Graphing calculators have the capability of analyzing data, much like data analysis software, and creating a function based on the pattern that is present that you can use then to predict future values. Okay, so we're going to walk through the steps to setting up. Now, regression is just the fancy word that we use for basically making the calculator come up with the equation yourself. And then, yeah, okay. So I'm going to kind of do this as well, showing you on the graphing calculator where to go. First of all, everything you need for regression is under this button right here called the Stat button. So you're going to hit Stat. Okay. Well, let me, hold on. Back up. Nope, we need to do this first. Okay. So go to Stat. And then to input your data, you want to select Edit. So you hit Enter, and then you have some lists pop up. You're going to input your data. Sorry, move that really quick. Into the list. Okay, so for example, if you have X values, put them into L1, Y values, maybe put them into L2. Now, if you don't have L1 and L2, somebody accidentally deleted them, or if you have values, let's say we had to put some data in there. To delete them out, you don't want to come up here to L1 where it highlights and hit delete, because that will delete the whole list. You just want to clear the list, so you hit clear and then hit enter, and it clears the list for you. Okay, so you input the data into the list. The next thing that you would do, if you don't already know what function they want you to use to come up with the equation, you have to actually graph it to determine what kind of function you want, or what kind of pattern the data is forming. So to do that, you go to second. So maybe we put as our next step. I should have written a step here. Sorry, here. That's your overarching step for step 1. Input data. Next one, graph data. To graph the data, you go to second, and then y equals. And you want to turn your stat plot on, so hit enter. And then you want to turn it on, so it's going to, the little blinker guy is going to be over the word on. You click it. It really should be a dot plot at this point. You need to tell the calculator what list to put in. So you may make sure L1 is an X list. So here, turn stat plot on, and make sure your lists match up number 1 up there. And then on this screen, it's easier to see the box instead of the dot, so I always have that first marker selected. Okay, so you can see if I put all my lists into L1 and L2, my X list is L1, my Y list is L2. The calculator has to know which list you want to make your X values and which you want to make your Y's. Okay. Then you go to Zoom Stat. So Zoom. Oh, these are different. Oops. Sorry. Hello. Okay, on Zoom Stat. Now, I have an error message because I don't have any data in there actually. But what the Zoom Stat button does is it will focus your screen in on where your data is so you can see the pattern. Actually make that under number 3. So hit Zoom Stat. Determine the pattern. Function you want to use. Okay. So if all your data is in a straight line, you'll want to use a linear regression. If it looks like a U, you'll want to use a quadratic regression. It just all happens like whatever your pattern is forming. Okay, for number 4, then after you determine the pattern you want to use to have the calculator do the regression, you need to go to Stat again. And then you need to go to the Calc menu to go over 1. And then, depending, let's say they wanted linear regression. Okay, so you select linear regression. I'll just click there really quick. You can see they have linear, they have quadratic, they have cubic, they have quartic, and they have a bunch of others. But really in our class, that's what we're going to focus on. Those 4 right there. And then it comes up on your screen like this. Select the function you want. Okay. I should put 1, 2. These are the main 3 things. Sorry, I should organize this a little bit better. This first thing up here, inputting the data, that's a big step. Graphing the data, the second big step. Regression is the bigger, or the third big step there. Alright, so select the function you want. Then, tell the calculator what data to use. Example. If we use linear regression like this, it'll pop up LINREGAX plus B. To tell the calculator what we want them to use, you'd have to put in L1, which is second, and then 1, get you L1 on the screen, and then comma, which is above the 7, second L2. Because basically, your calculator needs you to put it in as an ordered pair. So there's my ordered pair. So L1, comma, L2. Hit enter. And once you hit enter, which nothing's going to happen here if I hit enter except an error message because I never input data. But once you hit enter, then your function pops up. Okay, so we're going to go ahead on the next page and actually do this with some data. Alright, so the following table of values is data based on x times in seconds and y height of a rock thrown in the air in feet. So, we go to stats to input the data. We want to input it into the edit menu. So I'm going to put all my x values into already turned my stat plot on, but to turn it on, just in case you haven't, go to second, and y equals, just make sure it's on, make sure it tells me my lists are the same as the list I selected. We're good to go. Then you go to zoom, and you go to zoom stat, and there's my data. Oh, I got some other stuff graphing too. Hold on. I'm going to clear that up. Okay, so there's my data. Now, the pattern does not look like a line. It looks like maybe it comes down here and then starts to go back up. Maybe we would call this an outlier. So I might call this a quadratic because that's a very quadratic shape. So I'm going to pick quadratic regression. Go to stat, calc menu. We want quadratic regression. And then you have to tell the calculator what list it wants you to, I want you to use. Do L1, L2. And then it gives me this setup. So it gives me the standard form of the function and then tells me what A, B, and C are. So we're going to actually, excuse me, go ahead and write that down. Okay. And then what type of situation could this data and equation represent? And this is actually probably a piece we're going to talk about tomorrow as a group because I want to get your feedback on it. Now, if this calculator stuff is all new to you, it's going to seem overwhelming at first, but we are going to practice it several times before your summative so that you're pretty comfortable with it. Okay? All right. Your video's over.